I am Vinnie Tortorich, folks. Your good intentions have been stolen, but don't worry. I'm here to help you get them back. You may be soft and succulent at the beginning of this process, but hang in there. Before long, you will be lean and mean, guaranteed. Just like the guy on the other mic today, we're talking to none other than Mr. Scott King. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this song came to mind when I started thinking about this guy because he's out there in Texas somewhere. That's right. Not everything is close in Texas, but I got a feeling he might be somewhere near LaGrange. Folks, I'm talking about none other than Mr. Scott King. Scott. Scott, I'm going to start with that question. Do you know where LaGrange is?
I looked it up before because I know they're a Texas band. I am several hours away. I want to say it's south.
That means several hours away in Texas means it could be the next town over.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's a hike.
Yeah. Just like one time I was going through an ice storm in Texas back in the late 80s, and I ended up in a place called China Grove. And I don't know if you know this, but when they wrote that song, they didn't know that there was a town called China Grove in Texas.
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, there's names out there in Texas that most people don't know about, and China Grove is one of them. At any rate, Scott, you might wonder why I would be bringing you in on a Friday show as a luminary, right?
Yeah,
the fact of the matter is, you are a luminary, and I'm starting to realize this more and more. It was brought to my attention. Look, I have these doctors on the show, these MDs and PhDs, and I'm going to tell you, some of them, I always call the shots here. I don't mess around. I wonder if they're practicing what they're preaching, right? I'm going to touch the third rail here. Years ago, Jimmy Moore, before he ended up in prison, and I hope he rots in prison for what he did. But Jimmy Moore, people used to ask me all the time, Jimmy Moore talks a good game about low carb. He's written books with Eric Westman. He never seems to have lost any amount of weight. And in some cases, and by the way, you're smiling over there, which means that you've had the conversation privately. See, nobody wants to talk about it out loud, right? On any podcast or anywhere else. I've beaten cancer. I'm beating cancer for a second time right now. I haven't beat it yet. I got my give a fuck is broken attitude, right? Jimmy Moore never lost weight, yet he was Mr. Living La Vida low carb, right? And I'm sure if you saw him online or saw him at an event somewhere, you would sit there and go, wait a minute, why should I be following this guy? And people say, oh, Vinny, everybody's on their journey, right? They're on their journey. Okay, 10 years, I need to see something in your journey. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Stop me, Scott, if I'm not making sense. Because you're a man who lost 300 pounds and you're still on your journey, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Mm-hmm. You're on your journey. You're not done yet. No. Some people are 300 pounds. Where did the guy weigh? We'll get into that. Yeah. Somebody sent me another woman, again, MD, written books. She sells programs. And I'm not going to mention her name. She's never been on this show. Someone sent me a thing the other day and said she was jumping into a cold pool of water. And so she had on a two-piece. And they said, how is it this woman is talking about fasting 36 and 48 hours and 4 days at a time? Why is she still fat, or why is she fat at all? And my answer is, I'm pretty sure she's not practicing what she preaches.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because I'm not going to lie to people, right? I'm not going to say, oh, she's on her journey and she should look perfect and everyone should look like an Instagram model. No, not everyone's supposed to look like that. But if you're out there selling people programs, why in fuck do you not at least look like you're using your own program?
Yeah, absolutely. Right? I agree.
Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%.
So yeah, that's where I am with it. And I could go down the line. There's a lot of MDs that I have on this podcast, and I'm sitting there listening to them sometimes going, are you taking your own advice? And a lot of times people don't. We know Ansel Keys famously said that eating cereal is for the small people. And if anyone wants to know who Ansel Keys was, he was Anthony Fauci before Anthony Fauci. Talked out of both sides of his mouth. Tell
That's a good
people
description.
meat is not good for you. And then people would see him in steak restaurants and go, oh, look at you, Ansel, having meat. And he said cereal is for the little people. Now, that's a famous quote by him. So when people say to me, why Scott King, the guy was 600 pounds? Like, you couldn't even weigh yourself when you got that high, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It was a guesstimate.
Yeah. A guesstimate, 600 pounds. Now, Scott, you've been on this podcast several times, but the part you need to realize is we bring in new audience all the time. Some people are going, I don't know who this guy is. So I want you to go back to that story. And I love the story. So I want people to know that it wasn't easy for you. Talk about your daughter and not being able to protect her. I love that story. I tell the story all the time. And what you did that day, and you heard me and you heard DDP yoga, and one thing led to another, and bada bing, bada boom, go.
Yeah. So yeah, I came off of a failed gastric bypass where I lost weight. I tried to have gastric again, got denied. Kind of licking my wounds, feeling sorry for myself. Gave up. Just assumed I was just going to kind of meet my demise relatively soon. And during this time, I had been hearing you on Adam Kroll and Dr. Drew podcast, but it sounded like keto to me, and I'm not really interested in that because there's a lot of figuring stuff out, and I just don't do that. So fast forward to I was sitting on the front porch with my three girls, my three daughters, and my youngest at the time was, this is called, about 2.5 years old. And I want to start off with, luckily we're on a quiet street and nothing happened, but she darted for the street, and there was absolutely nothing I could do. It took me several seconds just to get out of the chair, and then I could not take a pace to where I can catch up with the little kid running in the street. And it really it sunk in that time that my health was so poor that I could not even do the basic function of protecting my daughter with a task that should not even be. It should have been a reflex, not an ordeal. And it broke my heart and it crushed me. And I felt like I was giving up on my family by just saying, okay, if I can't have gastric bypass, I have no hope. So I gave more listen to you, and then kind of did some research on you and said, oh, wow, this makes sense. I don't have to figure out anything. I just don't eat this. I can't eat this. And it just made sense. My brain works that way, and it seemed relatively easy. And like you said, we really didn't know what I weighed. I just know that my heaviest recorded weight was 552. So I tried it, and I felt like the clothes were loosening up. I just didn't know if it was in my mind because I was just in limbo. Right. Nothing was able to be recorded. And then I know several months down the road, I was able to finally get a recorded weight of, I'm talking several months down the road, get a recorded weight of something like 445 pounds. I think the scale finally weighed, which is crazy to think that when you see 440 something on the scale is a huge victory for you, because you didn't know what it was before that. You were just pulling errors everywhere. And the old school scales at the doctor's office couldn't weigh me. I mean, that maxes at 350. So clearly something was happening. And I was actually not just thinking I was feeling a difference. I knew I was seeing a difference. And then I just kind of got super motivated, super charged up. And I knew this was for me. And I just wanted the next hurdle. I wanted to see a 3 in front of my weight. And we just kept doing that. And you set little goals at a time, and before you know it, they start adding up.
Yeah. And by the way, there's so many people, it breaks my heart, people that live in the Midwest and everything, they'll say, yeah, I went, my friend, they own a potato farm, and they have these scales, that can measure up to 1,000 or 1,200 pounds, or at least a half a ton. And can you imagine being a person, the heartache to have to go in front of your friend, go call your friend and go, hey, can I come on and weigh on your scale that you weigh grains and potatoes on?
I'm ashamed to admit, but I was at the point I didn't do it because I didn't have the willpower in me and the inner strength to do it. I was ready to go to a local feed store because I knew they can weigh heavy weights, and I didn't want to be a circus event. And it crushed me.
You know what? I'm getting choked up even talking about it. It fucks me up every time someone tells me that story where they had a friend who took them after work that worked at a feed store or worked at a grain mill or potatoes. I've heard it all, and it breaks my heart in ways you can't even imagine. Right.
And you know what? It's with being a morbidly obese person, you get in so over your head before you know it, and you just don't know which way is up anymore. So I definitely have a soft spot like you do for people like that, because I can sympathize so much with what that feels like. It's a horrible, horrible, horrible feeling.
And look, that's why I created the VIP group, right? The NSNG VIP. And we're going to open it up again at some point. I wanted to wait until the movie came out and the whole thing, but there's so many people waiting to get in. That I think I'm going to open it up again soon, especially because I don't know if you saw that you're in that group, right, Scott? Or
I'm not, and I'll tell you why. I wanted people to have the advantage of being able to get into there and not me take a spot.
Well, we're going to get you in. You need to be in that group because you're an inspiration, and what goes on in that group is pretty amazing. I just started doing a thing today where I put my first exercise routine in there.
Nice.
Do you know about this? Did you hear about this?
No, I didn't.
Well, you and the audience is going to. The other day we were doing the check-in. I do a check-in with the VIP group, a live thing where people can talk to me and do all this stuff twice a month. Sometimes we do it more than twice a month if we have something special to talk about. And what I figured out was, even though I did aerobics all the way through my chemo, I started working out again and realized I was very weak. So, and the reason being is I'm staying in low zone 2 when I'm on my spinner here or on my rowing machine. I'm staying in very low zone 2. And I was able to do that without having a very high hematocrit level or a lot of red blood cells whatsoever. And the doctor finally released me so I could go out to the gym, or I can use the gym behind me. And I started moving weights again. And I was in there the other day. I look like I should be able to do 40, 50 push-ups, no problem. That's what I look like. In reality, I got to 5. And that was it. That's, when you're, chemo will just mess you up, man.
Yeah, that's tough.
And it's messed me up, and my red blood cells and hematocrit level is in a dumper. And so when I was talking to the group the other night, I said, you know what? I'm starting at square one. And some of you might be at square one also. As a matter of fact, I know a lot of them are. So I'm going to start putting exercise videos up in the VIP group that only the VIP group can get, because those are the people who are in there, they're struggling. They're the Scott Kings of the world, right? They're trying to do better. And so why shouldn't I bring myself back and be real about it? It's like, I'm weak right now, right? Today I did an ab routine. It was just a short ab workout. I wanted to keep it to 5 minutes. Somehow I made it to 14 minutes. Don't ask. But there was a lot of instruction and talk in there. But we got this little routine done. And if people cut off me talking at the beginning and at the end, you could probably get it down to 7 or 8 minutes. And I'm going to do more of those. Everyone seems to be loving it. So I was like, well, these people like this. I'm going to do more exercises in that group. I might even do a whole video routine that everyone can do at some point.
It'd be super beneficial.
Yeah, I think it will be. And that's what you and I are going to be talking about today a little bit, is about, how to get you to that next stage. But I just wanted people to know your story and know that, because like I said, I could bring these doctors in and people look at these doctors and go, he can stand and lose 75 pounds. I'm not talking like these doctors are 10 or 15 pounds overweight. Some of these experts are, 75, 80 pounds, easy. And they're giving advice on how to eat. I believe in a practice what you preach, right? Someone brought up the other day, said, for being over 60 years old, it's basically you, meaning me, and Mark Sisson, who really seems like we practice what we preach. And I went, oh, no, there's a lot of other guys. It's like, over 60? Nope. Think about it. No. And I started thinking about it, and it's like, I couldn't come up with a third person. Can you?
No.
You're in the space.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I could think of is Baker, but he's like 55, 54, somewhere around there. So no, nobody.
Yeah. And Sean will tell you that Sean is as strong as three mules and a team of oxen. What he's doing is unbelievable. Even Sean said that he needed to trim down a bit, right? He has no problem taking his shirt off. Now, anybody would give their left nut or eye teeth or whatever you want to say to look like Sean Baker, right? He's a very, very fit man. And I think he holds a couple of world records on sprinting on a concept too. What Sean Baker does is nothing short of amazing, but he's got some love handles, and I'm not saying that about Sean. Sean says that about Sean, and he's trying to work to get rid of that, which I want him to, because he would be a good example for everyone in this group. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Love Sean, by the way. I think he's a great guy. Anyway, you lost the 300 pounds. You didn't get your stomach cut out for a second time. I know that sounds weird, but explain that. People don't realize. They think, oh, I go for gastric bypass and then world is going to be just hunky-dory, just roses. It's not like that, right?
No, and that's what's so frustrating about it is when you start to see the pounds packing on, you panic because you don't know what to do. You don't know why it's happening. Sometimes you do know why it's happening, but you were billed this is the be all end all. We're going to be done with the weight loss issue, and it comes back, and you just took the most extreme measure possible to do it. It's a scary, scary, scary time because what else can I do? I couldn't do it on my own, and now a doctor can't do it for me either. What do I do? It's a horrible feeling.
It has to feel like doomsday.
It does. That's why I felt so defeated, and when I couldn't get the gastric again, because apparently it was the only solution. Ironically enough, that's why I was just so defeated, because it's the only thing I ever saw at least temporary success on. So, I mean, there was no other extreme measure I could take beyond that. I mean, I did it. It was done, and it didn't work. And what do I do?
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. But 300 pounds down. How tall and how much do you weigh now, Scott?
I am 6'1". And I'll tell you what, last time we talked, I was hooked on energy drinks and my weight started creeping up. And I saw as heavy as 294 at one point. And I'm proud to say this Saturday, for the first time ever, I'm in the 240s now.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, even in my best, I was stuck in the 250s, and now I'm finally in the 240s. And I was thinking about it, and not to be funny, I think that's probably equivalent to like a 12 or 13-year-old age for me. Weight for me when I was 12 or 13 years old was probably the same weight.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you bring up the energy drinks. People fight me on the energy drinks, and they fight me on the diet soft drinks. And it's like, listen, if you want to get serious about this, you need to cut it out. That was all you were doing, and you came to me and I said, Scott, the energy, they just got to go right now. You went from almost 300 again down to 240, 60 pounds.
Right.
What move? Folks, listen to what I'm saying here. He made one move. He got rid of the stupid energy. And I say stupid, I mean, when I go to the bathroom in gas stations, I make it a point, I don't buy anything ever in a gas station except gas. And you do that out at the pump. But when I'm on the road, I'll go to the bathroom. You walk past that cooler, their names, like when I was a kid, there was Dr. Pepper, Pepsi, Coke, 7-Up, Sprite. I just named everything. There's purple cans, fluorescent, this can, green cans, blue cans, pink can, just cans of all kinds of stuff with wacky names on it. And I'm sitting there going, well, I'm not sitting there, I'm walking past it going, no wonder. Everyone's just hopped up on this, right?
Yeah. I was shocked. And I honestly, I mean, I'm not being mean. I thought like, okay, Vinny's being a little extreme with this no sugar stuff because I'm not having sugar. I'm having, it says no sugar on it, and then when we did the last pod, we broke it down, and man, that is a freaking lie. And again, even after we were done, I'm like, oh, I'm going to do it, but it just makes no sense. I'm not going to see results. And it cut cravings I had, after a couple, I don't know, week or two, I wasn't craving them anymore. Now the thought of them is just nauseating. But I mean, it's just funny how just your body doesn't know what to do with a science project. It's a chemistry experiment.
Yeah.
And your body just doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. I try to explain it to people and they say, oh, come on, Vin, I got to keep, it's like they're asking me, can I keep my Banky? Can I just keep my Banky so I can go to sleep? It's like, no, I need to take your Banky. You're a big boy now. You can't have a Banky anymore. Right.
And it was so psychological too, because I didn't feel good when I consumed them. I mean, it didn't make me energetic. It made me feel like garbage.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. I want to get into your questions, but before we do that, folks, Villa Capelli olive oil. Villa Capelli. Scott, you ever use Villa Capelli at all?
No, I'm ashamed to admit I have never.
Oh God, you're missing out.
Don't disconnect on me.
I might have to hang up on you. Nice talking to you, Scott.
Yeah,
that was Scott King right there. Yeah, goodbye, Scott. No,
I'm dead to you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Now I'm just playing all of my stuff. Scott, Villa Capelli olive oil, you need to get. It's the best olive oil. You know how I told you to stop using these crazy drinks?
Yes.
Let's take your health to the next level. Get good olive oil. Just do it. It changes everything. Villa Capelli, folks. You want to get the best olive oil? There's a couple of ways to save. If you put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, no wimpy Y, you'll get 10% off. But wait, there's more. If you spend more than $125 after the discount, so let me do some math for you. Get yourself a 3-liter 10. It's about $100. You go $100 for olive oil. It's 3 liters. Think of like a gallon can. It's not quite a gallon, but what 4 liters is a gallon. So it's 3/4 of a gallon, right? So go get yourself a 3-liter 10. That will last you forever. It's way less expensive than if you bought the little tiny thing at an expensive wine and cheese shop. That's number one. But if you spend more than $125, so if you spend $140 minus the Vinnie discount, you'll be over $125 and you'll get free shipping on that almost gallon of olive oil. So go check out Villa Capelli. Let them know we sent you by putting in promo code Vinnie. You'll save and they'll remain a sponsor and everything will be great. Scott, you had questions for me and I looked at those questions and I said, you know what? Other people can benefit from this. So instead of just giving you the answers, I figured, hey, let's talk about it here. And folks, he's getting ready to run a full-on Ironman event in 2025, right?
Yes, sir. Yep, that's my plan.
Okay, so let's start there. How many triathlons have you done so far? Give us a little resume, Scott.
So nothing overly significant. I've done 4. I think I've done 4, mostly shorter ones. My first one was just a sprint. And then the one after that was an Olympic distance where I went out to Oklahoma. There's another one in the middle. I did do a half iron relay. So I didn't do the whole thing myself, and I just did the bicycle portion on that, that was a 56-mile bicycle portion. And that was out in Lubbock, and there's a lot of wind out there, and I'm not aerodynamic, and I catch all the wind.
Yeah.
So that kicked my butt pretty good. But yeah, so that's kind of like my background. I got another one up here in August, beginning of August. I'm going to kind of knock the cobwebs off and start building up from there again, and just kind of building up and hopefully try to get a half in towards the end of the year.
Okay, so give folks an idea: the sprint distance, give the swim, the bike, and the run.
Yeah, sprint distance is typically a 300 to 500-ish yard swim. Bike ranges 12 to 15 miles, and then a run is usually a 5K or 3.1 miles.
Okay. And then when you get up to Olympic, what does that smell like?
Olympic, you're going to be more on about the 1200-ish, give or take a little bit swim. Bike will be usually 20 to 25 miles, and then the run is usually a 10K or 6.2 miles. Roughly is a typical.
And what distance are you doing in August? Are you going half?
August is just going to knock the cobwebs off. I'm going to do a sprint.
Okay. And then end of the year, we're going to do a half?
Half towards the end of the year is my plan, yeah.
Okay, so folks, a half, that's just over a mile in the water.
Mm-hmm.
That's 56 miles on a bike, and then 13.1?
Yep. Yeah, half marathon on a run.
Yeah. Okay. And that will give you the idea of what you're going to be able to do almost a year after that, right?
If I do it towards the end of the year, it'll give me 5-ish, 6-ish months to the full.
Okay.
I figured it'd be a good evaluation assessment.
Which one do you have it earmarked, the full?
I do. I don't want to travel far, so the closest one I have is out here called the Woodlands, which is just north of Houston.
Okay. Yeah. Houston in what month would that be?
End of April.
All right, so it won't be very hot.
Yeah, it won't be horrible.
Yeah. You think you're gonna wear a wetsuit in the water there? Or April in Houston can be.
I know because I was following it this year, and I know it was just barely wetsuit legal.
Okay.
So I mean, yeah, if I can use a wetsuit, I will, just because it gives you the buoyancy and you can get some free energy there.
Yeah, folks. If the water's a certain temperature, you can wear a wetsuit. If not, you have to take it off. The reason he said wetsuit legal is, when you got to take it off, you got to keep pedaling in that water. You can't stop and take a break. You got to just keep moving, right? So that's the difference. So, yeah, I would spend a lot of time in the pool starting now. You really need to get that down pat.
Yeah, so I do have at my house I have a little cheap above ground pool with a tether system I use. Down the road, I have a pool at the gym. And then I'm very fortunate enough to have a good friend at church who's well-to-do, and he's a former collegiate swimmer, so he has a really nice natural spring pond that he has set up for swimming. So it's nice to get an outdoor swim over there.
Yeah, and then you get wintertime where you are, so that's a problem. So get as much time, because 2025, did you say April of 2020? What did you say?
Yeah, April of 2025. I can tell you it's 309 days.
Yeah, you're less than a year away. You're in it.
Yeah,
you're in it now, and every day counts. I know that sounds crazy to anyone out there, but I was in the ultra world. I used to put races on my schedule they would be in October, and on January 1st, I was on the bike. And you would go, and I was already trained up from the season before and did all that, but it's like, okay, I got these races coming up. Here are the short races I'm going to do in between. Here's how the training's going to go. Here's everything. And then every now and then I do a couple of races midsummer, sometimes go hit a mountain bike 24-hour race or something on the way there just to change things up. But yeah, that's basically what you have to do.
Yeah, it's a massive undertaking. I mean, I've been in training for a while now. I'm really ramping up the training right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have to understand. I mean, people have to understand too. I mean, yeah, it's a process, because it is a huge feat. But also keep in mind, when I started this back in 2018, NSNG in 2018, I couldn't walk for more than 15 minutes. So
you couldn't get to your daughter a few feet away.
No,
and
if I couldn't get a parking spot close enough at a grocery store and I had a big list, I just couldn't go to the grocery store.
Yeah, listen, I have relatives like that. That's why people go, why are you so passionate about this? It's like, I have people I love very close to me who their whole life, I say they're living in a prison of their own body.
It's absolutely true. I mean, people that don't experience it don't really get it. It's everything about your life is difficult. Just living is difficult.
I told this story a while back on the show. We went out to dinner with friends of ours from the neighborhood here, and they kind of know what I do for a living. They don't really know. It's like, what are you talking to them? What's going on? They're older and very, very intelligent people. And they're both naturally, she's very lean. I guess never had a weight problem in her life. And we were eating out one night. And like I said, she kind of knows what I do. And she goes, look at that. Look at that woman. And I gazed over my shoulder, and there's a woman that's probably near 400 pounds sitting at the next table. And I went, yeah, what of it? She goes, can you believe, look at that woman. First off, she had, I watched her. She had, an appetizer. Then she had an entree and ate all the fries and the fried food, the whole thing. So now she's having a whole dessert by herself. And I said, that woman, her brain thinks she's starving right now. She can't get enough food. She doesn't feel full. Why can't she just stop? Why can't she have discipline? I said, because she can't. I said, please do not judge this person. She wants to look like you in the worst way. She does not want to be that weight. That woman's going to have trouble getting out of that booth and getting to her car and, with her family and her loved ones. She does not have a choice. And by the way, the whole family was morbidly obese, right? And Serena and I tried to explain to this woman 5 ways to Sunday that it has nothing to do with discipline. It has nothing to do, her hormones are working against her. Right. And she does not know why that's happening. She's tried everything. She probably, just like you, had gastric bypass or seen a doctor, on and on and on. Right. But I'm sitting there with this woman who's and the woman I'm sitting there is super nice people. I wouldn't go out to dinner with jerks. They're nice people. She couldn't wrap her mind around this. Right?
Yep. Yeah.
And I'm a guy who I've spent my life wrapping my mind around it and working with guys like yourself. But it hurts me and aggravates me in a way that she was passing judgment on someone else and knew nothing of the truth, just ignorant to the truth. And that's the way most people walk around. Most politicians walk around like that. Scott, if you're not losing weight, it's your fault. Weight Watchers used to tell us. You ever do Weight Watchers along the way?
Oh, how many times?
Yeah. So what do they tell you whenever you failed? It's your fault. You can sign up again, try again.
Yep. Yeah. We have a great introductory program, or maybe buy our meals. If you have more success if you buy our meals.
Yeah. It's always buy something else. That's why I tried to get online, and you did everything. Everything I had to offer, you did for free, right? You didn't give me a dime. Can you give me a dime now? I mean, just one dime, so I can say, yeah, he paid me a dime at some point.
Hey, I can tell you, I did buy it when the ebook came out. I did buy it because I had to give you something.
But you already had it for free, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And how much did you pay for that ebook? What do I charge? $10 or something?
Entire $10.
I appreciate the $10. I'll let my wife know we can go out and get a hamburger tonight. Scott gave it.
Get a quarter tank of gas.
But no, I really appreciate that you guys are able to do it and you really not have to pay me anything. So you're moving along. You're doing this. Now you have questions.
Yes.
Let's go.
So you answered a question the other day on the pod that our buddy Bob Zimmer had about zone 2, and you talked about zone 2 drift, heart rate, and I experienced the same thing, especially with temperature and the heat Texas. I get it; makes total sense. So I had a question for you, which was, if I was to go just add to my workout regimen, which I already have a lot of stuff going on, but if I took 30 to 40 minutes at my lunch break and went for a walk, maybe a brisk walk, and try to get in low zone 2, would that in turn better my threshold to the zone 2, zone 3? Or am I thinking wrong on that?
No, it will. So you said it's actually called cardiac drift. You said something.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I want the audience, if people go look it up. So cardiac drift, the better shape you're in, the longer it's going to always happen, especially in heat, especially in humid areas. And, medicine's been trying to explain what cardiac drift is for years. Folks, what it is let's say Scott is in the gym and the air conditioning is on and everything is normalized, and he got on a treadmill and went for that run. Cardiac drift, I'm going to make up numbers for you, Scott, might happen at 90 minutes or 2 hours, where at the same speed where he was in his zone 2, at the same speed, the same incline, the same everything, all of a sudden his heartbeat goes up. So let's say his normal number was 130, right? Zone 2. He could be at the same pace, same everything. Now he's at 132, then 134, and then before you know it, 138, and then 140. So the question is, do you keep slowing down to get it back in zone 2? Yes and no. I tell people with the cardiac drift thing, slow it down somewhat, but not so much as to get back in zone 2. You're going to still be in zone 3, probably. When it happens to me in the heat, like it's been hot as hell. It happened to me today. I was out for a jog, and it's 90. It was 94 today, and the humidity is really high. We've been having this heat wave here on the East Coast, and about an hour in, 65, 70 minutes in, I was jogging at that point because, as I was mentioning earlier, I don't have a lot of energy. But I noticed on my watch, it just stayed up, right? And I think some of that is the blood is trying to cool the body. So the heart rate, the brain says, hey, let's get this blood around here. Let's keep my brain at a certain temperature. So let's pump more blood, because the more blood you pump, then the cooler you can stay, and on and on and on. It's a protection mechanism, and you just have to work around it. Does that answer it for you?
Yeah. Yes. So my question was basically like, if I did more sustained zone 2, if it would kind of help me stay in that threshold. But it sounds like
kind of do it. It will. It's a slow and it's a long slog. As you do more pool work, more road work on the bike and on the run, you're going to notice that the cardiac drift pushes a little further and further and further. It happens so slowly. Like, don't expect, it's like, shit, I'm doing so much more work, but this isn't going up in accordance with that. It goes up slightly, but eventually it gets there.
Oh, and absolutely, yeah. I've noticed that because I do like basically the same thing. I do 80-20 triathlon training, which is 80% zone 2, and then 20%, intervals and stuff like that. And when I first started, I was mostly walking.
Right.
And after several weeks, month maybe, then you'll start seeing more and more running. Also, beyond the heat, I live in a very hilly area, so I notice I can stay in the proper zones when I'm on the trainer or the spinner or the treadmill, controlling my environment, but I have to assume the environment's really going to dictate most of it.
Yeah, the greatest aerobic athlete of all time, Mark Allen, who's been on this show a half dozen times, he would tell me that, because he was living near where I was living in California, and we had, our were 2,000 and 3,000 feet high, Santa Monica Mountains. And some people called them the highest short mountains in the world because, you weren't at any altitude, because, you're at sea level at the bottom, but they would go up to like 3,000 feet. But that's 3,000 feet of climbing that you do in the Alps. And I've spent a lot of time in the Alps. And I can tell you, people that came from Europe said, oh my God, this is as tough as the Alps, because the roads, you'll have a 4-mile continuous climb up a road, anywhere from 5% to 9%, say 7% grade on average. You got to hoof it. right?
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of zone 4 in that. I used to do a thing called feathering my pedals, where I can go a lot harder and not let anyone pass me along the way, or I can just stay easy on my pedals and just kind of grind it out and stay at least in zone 3, early zone 3, or sometimes in zone 2. Mark Allen used to get off of his bike and push it on the tougher parts of some of those hills.
Oh wow.
Yeah. Because he was hell bent on staying in zone 2. The guy won 7, Ironmans. Do you know his story at all, Scott?
Yeah. I do. I remember the last time you had him on, because I remember he was talking about when he was competing with Dave Scott, I believe.
Yeah, Dave Scott. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had one of his bikes. Yeah, I do recall that. Yes, and it was super interesting talking about his training.
Yeah, so Dave Scott won it 6 times in a row, and Mark Allen came out right behind him all 6 times. And the story is, Mark Allen trained harder and harder every year, and it became tougher and tougher to stay behind Dave Scott every time. Well, most people barely go 6 years in a triathlon career. 6 years is a long time. They burn out, right?
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of money in it. So there's burnout, not a lot of money. And my buddy Phil Maffetone, who I've had on the show several times, said, hey, I can help you. I can fix you. And Mark Allen was at the end of his rope, right? And he was like, why shouldn't I listen to someone else? So Phil Maffetone introduced him to zone 2 and said, you're not coming out of zone 2. You're not doing any interval training. You're staying in zone 2. You're doing everything in zone 2, period, end of story. And Mark Allen said, okay, yeah, I could do that. That's easy. And he did. Mark Allen beat Dave Scott that next year and then won another 5 after that, took a year off and won a 7th. And that's when ESPN called him the greatest aerobic athlete of all time.
Nice. That's awesome.
Yeah. So he is the GOAT. And I'm happy and proud to say I know the man. I know both of them. And I know Phil Maffetone, who will tell you the same story that Mark Allen will tell you. So 2 men will corroborate their story as to how he did that. So when people come around and start saying, oh, Vinny, these guys, all this zone 2, you need to do interval training and you have to do this, that, and the other thing. Nope. Now, if you came to me and you said, okay, Vin, my goal is I want to get my VO2 max up a bit, and it's good to have a higher VO2 max.
Right.
Then we have to do interval training. But you want to know how often we have to do that?
Yeah.
Once a week. After you're in very good shape. So after you're like 15 or 18 or 20 weeks of just straight aerobic training in zone 2, once a week, if you did some ups, I call them ups. So right in the middle, if I'm on my spinner for, let's say, 90 minutes, after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, I go a minute on as hard as I can, a minute, just cruising, a minute on, and do 4 or 5 ups, maybe 6 at the most. That's all you need to do, and you start increasing your VO2 max.
Nice.
It's a simple equation. Look, I've been exercise physiology. I've done this for 45 years. Let's see, 1981. How many? A lot of years. I've done a lot of years, right? I've been doing this my entire life. So I know what I'm talking about, right? And I hate when people go, oh, no, you got to do this and you got to do that. Tell that to Mark Allen.
Right. Yeah.
Greatest aerobic athlete of all time, who killed himself doing nothing but intervals and finished second 6 years in a row. You see, I think his 6 failures are more important than his 7 successes.
I can definitely see that.
I've always said failure, FQ, failure quotient. Wherever the failure is, and then you went and learned how to do it correctly, and it worked 7 times, now you can compare the 6 failures to the 7 successes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what do you get? Any zone 4 in there? No. And Mark will even say, right before the race, a couple of weeks out, sometimes I do some openers. He might kick it up a few times, just to feel it. But as the hair's in the barn, right? You've done the work.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need to do with you. We need to get the hay in the barn. Now, I know you had more than that one question. Did we answer that?
Yeah, that's perfect. So I've been doing better. I was focused so much on cardio for such a long time. I've been focusing also. I've been adding strength training also because I know it is so important. So I wake up early, do weight training. I do my cardio in the evening. And now I'm going to add some walks to my lunch just to see if I can help improve it. I know it's not going to be doing overly too much, but it can't hurt, right? But just training is hectic in general, and I can't always get everything in, like X amount of rides, X amount of swims, whatever. Do I need to be sport specific in every single cardio I do, or can I like?
No,
okay.
When you get closer, yes, but
Okay.
if you want to do other things like rowing, if you have a rowing machine, I think you have one in your gym, right?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, if you want to break out and do rowing and just do long, steady state rowing, that kind of thing. Stair climbing, if there's a stair climber at a gym in town, or I don't think you live near a town with a gym.
I'm not too bad.
Okay, so things like that would be great cross training for you. And I would suggest it if you can go mountain. If you have any kind of mountains where you can take long hikes, maybe throw a pack on, throw a couple of plate weights in that pack, 20, 30 pounds, that kind of thing. Ruck, I think they call it rucking now. They got a term and everything. Right now, you don't have to be so specific, but when you get closer to your event, you're going to have to be more specific. How many days a week are you hitting the weights in the morning?
I'm trying to do 4 or 5.
That's going to end up being 2 because you need more rest. That's the part people leave out. They think, oh, these guys are mutants. They just keep going. You need to rest. You at some point, and I don't know if you're there yet, but when you start putting in the big miles on the bike and the run and the swim, something has to stop, and it's going to be the 4 times a week on the weights. And for me, in the throes of doing the ultras, which is very similar to what you're going to do, my weights would end up being little or nothing on a Monday and a Friday because those are my 2 off days. And when I say I would walk into the gym, like on a pull day, and I might do 1 set of pull-ups, take a break, do another set to failure, and then go over and grab a barbell and do rowing, and then maybe do some light abs and spend the rest of the time stretching. That was it. And then on Friday, I would go in and do push. If I did that on Monday, on Friday, I would do, push. It was bench press or push-ups, maybe a little incline bench, a couple of shoulder press, light abs, stretching, get the F out of there. Right.
So it was almost like I wasn't even building up. It was just more of a maintenance.
Barely maintenance, just hanging on. It's just trying to hang on to something, and just doing something different, right? Because the bike, you're trapped in those pedals where you're just doing one motion. When you run, especially if you're on trails or anything, your feet are everywhere, and more articulation. When you're swimming, even though it's repetitive, there's some articulation. But in a bike, when you're just doing a bike, man, you're locked into this, right?
Yeah.
And you don't want the mechanics to break down. Monday and Friday were just, I call it the licking my wounds days. No cardio whatsoever. I would rest as much as I could. And by the way, every now and again, I would do, if I had a good stretch, I might do a couple of lunges. That was my leg work.
Okay.
Just to get more articulation in my legs, something different, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I was planning on winning these races, and you had to put the time in. And I mean, look, between January and I would get off the bike after October, so I had the rest of October, November, December off of the bike, where I was just jogging, running, at the gym 4 or 5 days a week, pumping iron, trying to get some meat back on my bones, some muscle. But between January and early October, I would have 18,000 miles on a bike. That's as much or more. My buddy Don Coddington, hang on.
It's the billionaire Don Coddington's Friday 5 o'clock.
Don said, I look like Chris Froome. When I train for something really hard, I end up looking like some of these professional cyclists, my waist goes down to nothing. I'm shredded. If you saw me with the shirt off, you would go, he looks like an anatomical chart. I shred out. And you've seen me, right? Can you imagine me at 152 pounds?
No.
That's
crazy.
Yeah. I look, people say, is this cancer back? That kind of thing. It's just not pretty. But yeah, 17,000 miles. If you buy a car nowadays and you lease it, they allow you 10 or 12,000 miles a year on a car.
Yeah.
Right. Can you imagine doing 16, 17,000 on a bike?
That's insane.
You know how many tires you go through?
Oh yeah. No crap. I didn't even think about that.
Oh, tires, brakes, chain rings. Do you realize you run through chain rings?
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't have that problem yet, but yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. There's wear and tear parts. I mean, every week or two, I would move the back tire to the front and try to run a few more miles on the front, and then move the front to the back, and then just keep rotating them like that.
Yeah.
The other thing is, people like to buy these expensive tires and everything. When you're training like that, I would just use steel bead tires and the heaviest shit I could find. I don't know if you can see it. There's a bike behind me, that's Rosa.
Yes.
I would train on that thing because it was a steel frame, right? It was a little more forgiving. It was much heavier, so you're training on a much heavier bike. I mean, I would race on a bike that weighed just over 14 pounds. My bike wasn't even legal for Tour de France, right?
Yeah,
you got to be at least on like a 15, 16 pound bike. We had these high, these bikes that weigh like 14 pounds. I would train on wheels so heavy, like the spokes in the back, I would have like 36 or 38 spokes in the back, double butted, real thick. In the front, 32, double butted, super thick. People say, what are you doing riding on those wheels? Trying to make it home after a 300-mile day is what I'm doing on those wheels.
It's like a tandem bike wheel set.
Yeah. I mean, and by the way, when you have double butted spokes and you have 36 or 38, guess what you're catching? A lot of wind.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of wind. But you see, all of that makes you a better rider. I laugh when I would see these people out on the tri bikes and all this bullshit, these super light bikes, and they would have the helmet on and the whole thing. The big teardrop helmet was like, you're training, asshole. What are you doing? I mean, you look like you're in a damn Tour de France, time trial. Which, by the way, I can make arguments all day long against that, spending money and all that stuff. Don't do it, Scott. Don't fall into that category. Because when you go to try to sell it later on, it's worth nothing.
Absolutely.
You'll get nothing for it.
No, I was fortunate. I found a bike that works perfectly for me, and it's just a good all-rounder. Fits well. I'm liking it. Yeah, absolutely.
So did I answer that question again?
You did, and actually I had another one, but you kind of answered it with the other one when you were talking about when I was talking about lifting, and how you were talking about it's going to be scaling down. That was you dug into the other question I had.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not there yet, but yes, I can see it. Well, where I will need to get to that point.
You're going to get there, and here's the deal. Rest, you'll learn at some point, rest is almost more important than training. Right?
I have been noticing sometimes of overtraining. Already. I mean, just too much stuff going on, 4 a.m, late night, and then just being exhausted and not being worthwhile.
I'll tell you a little secret. I'm trying to get ready to go up Mount Whitney, in July. And, I'm not making it a point to make it to the summit because I'm just coming out of chemo. And, the aforementioned red blood cells are not back yet. I'm hoping every week that they come back more and more. I take blood tests every week. But the idea is, slowly just get back into shape and see how high I could get on the mountain and really take my time. I'm not going to fucking hoof it up there just to stay in front of some chick who's getting ready to pass me. I'm going to let everybody pass me, and I'm going to just take my time. My buddy Cotty Cott, hang on.
It's the billionaire Don Cotting.
Anyway, he's got some issues this year too, and so we both said, you know what, we're going up there. We're going to have some fun, And if we make it to the summit, we do. If we don't, we don't. You know, I had to be out there anyway because I'm going to go do my buddy Mike Rowe's podcast, and
oh, nice.
He asked me to be there in person. You know, it's funny. Mike Rowe asked me to do his podcast, but I haven't gotten an invitation from you yet on your podcast.
Hey, I got a podcast. You want to be on it? There's your invitation.
I would love to.
Love to have you. I do it with our buddy, our good friend Robin Dobbins, who, according to Monday's podcast, looks like she's gone up in the rankings a little bit.
Why couldn't you do it with Rose Dobbins? You couldn't.
The favorite Dobbins.
Yeah, everybody's favorite Dobbins.
She's out of my budget. She pulls big money.
Yeah, I can imagine. She's not an easy get. So yeah, don't expect. I'd love to be on your podcast. If you guys, you know, I feel like a creep. I just asked you to be on your podcast. Maybe you don't want me on. So
no, we'd love to have you on there. Yeah, we just talk about people that have had success with this way of eating, and just to let them share their journeys.
Sure, yeah, yeah. I just wanted to bring up the fact that I know you guys had a podcast, and people. What's it called, Scott?
Less of Me Success Stories.
It's catchy. I like it.
Yeah.
But we both know that Robin's the big star, right? And you're just kind of a hanger.
Oh yeah, no. They needed somebody to lower the curve, and I was the man.
I like her story. I mean, she went into it because she had some brain issues, right? For lack of any other term, and dealing with. Does she talk about it? Should I cut this out? Does she talk about it?
No, she talks about it. She's even talked about it on our show, so she's open about it.
Okay. Yeah, she was having all kinds of trouble and just started eating meat, cut out all the other junk. And the woman is doing, a fantastic job. She lost a lot of weight in the interim. I mean, the before and afters on her, striking. And speaking of striking, her husband, he didn't have any mental issues, but he's lost over 100 now, I think.
Yeah, he's somewhere around there. And competing in or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, he's
he's literally kicking ass,
right?
For lack of any other term. But and people ask me, why do you still? You don't need to do that podcast. It's like, if you met all the people, come on, it's great. It's all good. I didn't mean to go into that diatribe. You got any?
No, I appreciate the offer.
Any other questions?
No, I think we're good.
Cool. No, listen, we got to get you in that group, in the VIP group. People love that group. I think Robin's in it. Robin is definitely.
She is.
I see her.
Yeah, she is.
I see her when we do the check-in, every 2 weeks. I'm going to open it up for more people real soon.
Okay.
So we'll see if we can get you in. Folks, you know what to do. We all go shopping on Amazon before you go there. Go to VinnieTortorich.com. Puts a little coal on the fire, gets our train down the track. NSNG Foods. I think we still have a discount if you put in promo code Vinnie, VINNIE, no wimpy Y. Go to NSNG Foods if you want to get some of the ultra fat. Scott, you use that product, right?
I do. I rely on it. That's key to my long rides and long runs.
Yeah. Don't say runs and my food product.
And a food product. Yeah.
I need to talk to you about how it all works. Anyway, I use it too. I'm going to be using it to fuel myself up and down Mount Whitney in just a couple of weeks. Rate and review this podcast, Amazon. Before you go there, go to VinnieTortorich.com. My movie as of today, the 20th, is still not released. I don't know what's going on there. Amazon will not give me an answer. People are now thinking something nefarious is going on. I don't think so. I just think that Amazon is that backed up. So we'll see what happens with that. So on behalf of Scott King, my name is Vinnie Tortorich. Put life into living, and let's do it with just a little bit more with that little band from Texas.